I'm joined now by three members of Parliament to discuss the comments made by Jody Thomas. Anita Vandenbeld is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence. James Bezan is the Defence Critic for the official opposition Conservatives. And Lindsay Mathyssen is the Deputy Whip and the Critic for Women and Gender Equality for the NDP. It's good to see you all. Anita Vandenbeld, let me start with you. Jody Thomas has painted a picture here in her comments of the military side running a checklist to make it look like change is happening, and no one on the civilian side ensuring that real change was actually happening. So I'm wondering how badly do her comments undermine the government's stated commitment here to stamp out sexual misconduct in the armed forces?
Well, in fact, I think it reinforces it. What Ms. Thomas said is no different than what the minister has been saying, what the Prime Minister himself has said, what the Acting Chief of Defence Staff, is that successive governments have failed the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces when it comes to sexual misconduct, harassment and assault, that there has been harm done, that many of the processes that we put in place did not meet their intended objectives, and that we have to do better, that we have to do more, we have to do it faster.
But she's specifically talking about the period after the Deschamps report was released, saying that there was, the civilians said there was sort of an effort to make a checklist, but to make it look like stuff was being done, but that no stuff was being done. That's a real focus on the last 5 years in particular, and what didn't happen, isn't it?
And that is precisely why we need Madame Arbour and why we appointed Madame Arbour and General Carignan, because we know that this has to be done outside of the CAF, outside of the military chain of command and structure. That is very, very evident from what has been happening recently. We have done a number of things. We know that it's not enough, and what Ms. Thomas said is precisely the same as what...
All right, let's move to Mr. Bezan. But she's also raising not just the military side, she's talking about the oversight side, the civilian side not doing enough to make sure it was getting done. Mr. Bezan, what's your reaction to what Jody Thomas had to say?
I think Jody Thomas, her interview yesterday was really an indictment on the Liberal government, that there has been no political leadership here shown by Defence Minister Sajjan or Prime Minister Trudeau. They allowed the Deschamps report to sit on Minister Sajjan's desk for the last 5 years and collect dust. And as she said, they barely even referenced it as a checklist and only half-heartedly brought about some of the changes that were asked for by Justice Deschamps. So, here we have the Canadian Armed Forces that are being rocked by this crisis of sexual misconduct by some of our top commanders. And the Liberals have sat on their hands and they're punting down any decisions down the road, kicking the can, as they say, so that they can put this off until after the next election, and then maybe they will deal with it. Our men and women in uniform deserve better. They deserve some real leadership coming from the political levels. Okay. And right now, all we have is people passing around the hot potato and not taking responsibility or being accountable for not taking action on sexual misconduct in the armed forces.
Lindsay Mathyssen, what's your reaction to this frank assessment of failure, I think, provided by Jody Thomas?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's clear, and actually this isn't the first time we've heard it. I've been sitting on the Status of Women Committee, and this isn't the first time we've heard about checking of boxes, and that the government ultimately, they have had 5 years. They've sat on the Deschamps report, and they haven't done what's necessary. They've done, in fact, what Ms. Thomas said, the bare minimum to look like they were the true feminists that they continue to claim that they are. But women don't need another report. And with all due respect to Justice Arbour and General Carignan, these are fantastic, incredible leaders and women, and I know that they will do a good job, but it's just another report. And there are already reports. There's the report from Deschamps, Madame Deschamps. There's a report from the Auditor General. There's a previous report from the Status of Women Committee, and the government has done nothing. And they will not show the leadership that women serving in the armed forces need, so that they can serve equally.
Anita Vandenbeld, the opposition parties want to these things are intertwined here. Want to call the Defence Minister's former Chief of Staff and the Minister of Defence back to committee to testify about the handling of the allegations of sexual misconduct against General Vance. You and your colleagues on the committee are refusing to let that motion come to a vote. So, do the comments from Jody Thomas suggest there are more questions to be asked about just how seriously the minister's office took the concerns about misconduct?
Well, first of all, the Defence Committee has already done over 26 hours of additional meetings in addition to our regular sittings. And we've heard the same thing from almost pretty much all of the witnesses that people acted in good faith. There wasn't enough information to investigate. But what I would go back to is
but let me just ask in this context, though. You have Jody Thomas, the deputy minister, saying boxes were checked, and the idea was to look like stuff was being done, but it wasn't actually being done.
Which is
but hang on, does that not present a potential line of questioning for the defense minister to bring him back to committee and say, look, I want to know how that approach to dealing with sexual misconduct informed your thinking around how you handle general bans?
Well, first of all, she said nothing more than what the defense minister himself has been saying, both before committee and elsewhere, what the prime minister, what the chief of defense staff have all been saying. What she said was not new. What it does, though, is it reinforces the need that we can get the report finished so that we can get those important recommendations from both committees that really matter to the women and men in Canadian Armed Forces. Get those recommendations also into the hands of Madame Arbour. Madame Deschamps herself said that she welcomed Madame Arbour's study because it went broader and it was more detailed than what she did.
Fair enough.
In fact, what Madame Deschamps did, the how, the what, the how is what Madame Arbour is going to tell us.
Let me move to Mr. Bezan. Mr. Bezan, do Jody Thomas's comments suggest to you there's a need to probe further with more Defence Committee hearings? Because it looks like you may not get them.
No, there's no question that we need to hear from her and Zita Stravis in particular, since they know things, and we'll be able to straighten out some of the contradictions from all the witnesses we had, including, Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, Katie Telford, Elder Marquez.
Just to be clear for our viewers, Zita Stravis is the former Chief of Staff to the Defense Minister.
Yeah. To Mr. Sagen. And we need to find out exactly what happened with the flow of information here. But, what we have is the Liberals' ongoing filibusters and suspensions of committee meetings. We have spent days in suspension rather than actually dealing with the issues at hand. They would rather filibuster having Zita Stravis appear in front of committee than actually go out there and address the report so that we can get down to the brass tacks of fixing things up for the women and men who serve in uniform. And, as we were talking earlier, we got the Deschamps report. We are going to have these reports coming forward from committee. We don't need another report. We need results. And that's what the troops are wanting from parliamentarians. That's what they expect from their political leadership, including Minister Sagen. And that's what they expect from their leadership within the armed forces, is start addressing this and let's fix it now.
Lindsay Mathyssen, you're not on the Defence Committee. You're on the Status of Women Committee, which has also been holding these kinds of hearings. But do you think there are more questions raised by what we heard from Jody Thomas or not?
I think that there's a lot of questions unanswered, and I hope that the Defense Committee can finish the business so that they can get to the report. I know that just another announcement of a report isn't enough. We do need that action. I just don't know if the government will actually listen.
All right. Well, we'll continue to follow the story and see where it takes us. Thank you all for your time tonight. Appreciate it, and take care. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you all.